Not every time it's the heroes who have the most aura. Sometimes it's the villains. And when it comes to giving villains insane aura, no one does it better than DreamWorks. So today, let's look at every time DreamWorks villains had pure aura. Starting with Tai Lung.
I have come home, Master.
Whose presence can be felt long before he ever appears on screen. Every character speaks about him like he's some unstoppable force waiting to be unleashed, and when he finally arrives, he somehow exceeds the legend. After spending 20 years locked inside a heavily guarded prison, when Master Shifu sends a messenger to warn the prison to tighten security, Tai Lung uses that very opportunity to escape with nothing but a single feather. What makes the scene so incredible isn't just that he escapes, it's how he escapes. He turns the smallest, most insignificant object into the key that dismantles an entire maximum security prison. From there, he tears through an army of heavily armed rhino guards, armor, weapons, numbers, none of it matters. It's not just raw strength, it's unmatched skill, confidence, and total tactical dominance while facing impossible odds. Then, when he comes face to face with the Furious Five, it feels like he isn't even trying. 5 of the greatest kung fu masters in China stand between him and the Dragon Scroll, yet Tai Lung barely looks like he's putting in any effort. He dismantles them one by one, adapting to each fighting style almost instantly. The Furious Five are supposed to be legends, but Tai Lung makes them look like students trying to keep up with their master. That's the true meaning of absolute skill, showing complete mastery over every second of the fight. After everything he accomplishes, the movie saves his most personal battle for last. His fight against Master Shifu isn't just another obstacle. It's 20 years of betrayal, resentment, and shattered expectations finally coming to the surface. But even with all that emotion behind every strike, Tai Lung never loses the composure that makes him so intimidating. Even while confronting the man who raised him, he's completely in control of the fight, and that's what gives Tai Lung such incredible aura. After 20 years in prison, he doesn't come back weaker. He comes back and reminds everyone why they were so terrified to let him out in the first place. But not every villain needs overwhelming strength to leave a lasting impression. Like Lord Shen, who commands every room through quiet confidence and psychological intimidation.
Part of you here, part of you there, and part of you way over there, staining the wall.
No matter how horrific his actions become, he never loses his composure. After years of exile, when Shen finally returns to Gongmen City, he just walks through the front gates with his wolf army behind him like he already owns the city. Even though he's facing 3 legendary kung fu masters, he never looks threatened for a second. He acts with absolute certainty that the city already belongs to him. His words alone carry plenty of weight, but it's the power of his cannon that does the impossible. In one moment, he kills Master Thundering Rhino and completely shifts the balance of power. He defeats 2 legendary masters, then uses his cannon to eliminate one of Kung Fu's greatest defenders, like he's simply reclaiming something that was always his. Throughout the rest of the movie, that same energy never disappears. Every conversation with Shen feels like a threat, even when he's speaking softly. Whether he's ordering executions, manipulating his own army through fear, or confronting Po, he almost never lets his emotions take control. His calm, unreadable nature keeps everyone around him constantly on edge. His greatest weapon may be the cannon, but his greatest source of aura is the fact that his mind is impossible to read. Then comes the final battle, where everything Shen built falls apart. His fleet is destroyed, his cannons fail to win the city, and the empire he spent years creating literally collapses around him. Po even gives him a chance and tells Shen to let go of the past. But even then, Shen refuses, because letting go would mean abandoning the path he spent his entire life pursuing. He would rather die than become someone else. And when death finally arrives, he simply accepts what's coming with the same quiet composure that defined him from the very beginning. He dies the same way he lived, completely committed to the dark path he chose, just like Pitch Black, who's just as committed to his path of spreading nightmares.
I'd say sweet dreams, but there aren't any left.
Pitch doesn't just create fear, he weaponizes the fear that already exists inside people. That's what makes him so terrifying. What's even more impressive is that his aura begins long before he ever appears on screen. The Guardians treat even the possibility of Pitch's return like it's the worst outcome imaginable. Before we ever meet him, we already know he's the one villain capable of threatening everything they protect. That's when you realize this isn't just another bad guy, he's the nightmare they've been hoping never comes back. When he finally emerges from the darkness of a child's bedroom, With a single touch, he corrupts one of Sandman's beautiful dreams into a living nightmare. The scene perfectly introduces who Pitch really is. He doesn't just create fear, he corrupts hope. Throughout the movie, Pitch's greatest weapon isn't his strength. It's his ability to attack the one thing that gives the Guardians power in the first place: belief. He understands that if children stop believing, the Guardians become powerless. That's psychological warfare at its finest. Even the way Pitch speaks reflects that philosophy. Everything he says is calm, controlled, and almost comforting, making his threats feel even more disturbing. He doesn't intimidate people through anger. He lets fear and doubt do the work for him. Rather than defeating the Guardians head-on, he slowly breaks their confidence. One by one, their greatest fears begin consuming them. Children across the world stop believing, hope disappears, and the Guardians, once seen as unstoppable protectors, are reduced to watching everything they've built fall apart. His greatest display of aura comes when he overwhelms Sandman, corrupting his dream sand and seemingly destroying the Guardian of Dreams. In a single moment, the force that had filled children's nights with hope is replaced by nightmares. And for the first time, it genuinely feels like fear has already won. What's even crazier is that while all of this is happening, Pitch is still holding his own against every Guardian at once. Now that's a display of aura you can't forget. That's what gives Pitch such incredible aura. He never needed to become the strongest being in the world. He simply wins by making everyone else lose hope. Ramses, on the other hand, never needed fear to command respect.
There shall be a great cry in all of Egypt, such as never has been or ever will be.
He does it through absolute conviction and pure authority. From the moment he becomes Pharaoh, he genuinely believes his word is law. In his mind, he isn't simply ruling Egypt, he is Egypt. Every command he gives carries the weight of someone who has never imagined a world where his authority could be questioned. And that's exactly what makes him so commanding. When Moses returns to Egypt, their reunion begins almost like old times. For a brief moment, you can still see the bond they once shared as brothers. Moses demands that he let the Hebrew slaves go, and you can see the heartbreak on Ramses' face. The brother he loved has returned, only to stand against him. Even then, Ramses never looks intimidated. He simply rejects Moses' request.
I do not know this God. Neither will I let your people go.
Refusing to submit to any authority greater than Pharaoh's. To him, Egypt is his empire, the Hebrews are the foundation of its strength, and setting them free would make him the weak link that destroyed the legacy of every Pharaoh before him. That's what makes this confrontation so powerful. The confidence in his voice and the way he carries himself make it obvious that, in his mind, the discussion was over before it even began. Then the plague started. The Nile turns to blood. Fire starts falling from the sky. Darkness consumes Egypt. One by one, everything that made the greatest empire in the world begins to collapse. But with every disaster, Ramses clings even harder to the throne. He doesn't surrender at all. His stubbornness during the plagues is honestly one of the greatest displays of human pride. At this point, he isn't just refusing Moses anymore. He's refusing to submit, even after witnessing the power of Moses as God. Even as his kingdom falls apart around him, he refuses to let go of the belief that Pharaoh must never kneel. Then comes the final blow in the form of the death of his own son. Where anyone would have surrendered long before reaching that point, Ramses doesn't. For a brief moment, grief finally breaks him and he lets the Hebrews leave, but it doesn't last. As the reality of his decision sinks in, Ramses cannot accept the idea of being remembered as the pharaoh who surrendered, so he does the only thing he believes a pharaoh can do. He goes after them himself. Consumed by anger and unable to accept defeat, Ramses changes his mind and personally leads his army after them. This isn't just about getting his slaves back anymore, it's about vengeance. He rides at the front of his chariot army, chasing the Hebrews all the way to the Red Sea. Even after witnessing miracle after miracle, Ramses refuses to abandon the pursuit. After everything that's happened, he's still willing to challenge the very force that brought Egypt to its knees. And that's what gives him so much aura. Ramses never stops being pharaoh. Even when the impossible is standing right in front of him, he refuses to surrender the identity he's built his entire life around. That unwavering conviction, no matter how tragic or self-destructive it becomes, is what makes him one of DreamWorks' most commanding villains. But unlike Ramses, the fairy godmother never needed a throne to stay in control.
Oh. I do believe we can make this work to our advantage.
Because her aura comes from pure manipulation. At first, she looks exactly like the kind of magical grandmother every fairy tale is supposed to have. Warm, friendly, trustworthy. But behind that charming smile is one of the most calculating villains DreamWorks has ever created. She dominates every room she walks into through influence, manipulation, and overwhelming magical power, and that's what makes her so dangerous. The moment she discovers that Fiona married Shrek instead of Prince Charming, she immediately goes into damage control mode. Her first move isn't against Shrek, it's against King Harold. She corners King Harold inside her carriage and reminds him exactly who holds the real power. By threatening to undo the happily ever after she gave him years ago, she backs the king into a corner, leaving him convinced he has no other choice but to betray Shrek. That's manipulation at its finest. Later, when Shrek goes to the potion factory, hoping to find answers, she immediately preys on his insecurities. She recognizes his deepest fear, that an ogre could never truly belong in a fairy tale, and uses it against him, making one thing crystal clear. In her world, she's the one who decides who gets a happily ever after. And ogres like Shrek were never part of that. Even after Shrek steals the happily ever after potion, she doesn't panic. She instantly turns the situation back in her favor. Rather than chasing Shrek herself, she sends Prince Charming to impersonate him, creating the perfect illusion for Fiona. Then, when Shrek witnesses the two of them together, the fairy godmother doesn't try to threaten him or insult him. She pretends to sympathize with him. With fake sympathy and gentle words, she convinces Shrek that if he truly loves Fiona, the best thing he can do is leave her forever. That's what makes the scene so brilliant. She creates the entire problem, then manipulates Shrek into making the exact decision she wanted all along. By the time the final act begins, she's already controlling almost every piece on the board. King Harold is trapped by guilt. Prince Charming is following her every command. The royal guards are carrying out her orders, and the entire kingdom is unknowingly watching her plan unfold exactly the way she designed it. She's doing all of it while performing on stage. While everyone else is distracted by her show-stopping performance, she's calmly orchestrating every major piece of her plan from behind the scenes. And that's Aura. She never needed to be the strongest person in the room because she made sure everyone else was playing by her rules from the very beginning. Much like Grimmel, who makes sure everything goes according to his plan from the start.
I'm afraid you're mistaken. You've never seen anything like me.
His aura comes from pure intelligence in a way that can be even more intimidating than force. In many ways, he's the perfect dark reflection of Hiccup. Where Hiccup uses his intelligence to protect dragons, Grimmel uses his to hunt them. Everything he does is calculated, and that's what makes him so dangerous. His first appearance tells you exactly what kind of villain you're dealing with. When a massive rumble horn suddenly breaks loose and begins tearing apart the warlord's arena, this is Aura in its purest form. Not long after, Grimmel takes things a step further when he casually walks straight into Hiccup's house. He's completely alone, in the middle of enemy territory. And somehow he's the most relaxed person in the room. Instead of making threats, he simply starts talking. He calmly reveals that he hunted nearly every Night Fury to extinction. Just hearing him describe it makes you realize how terrifying his dedication really is. Then, after delivering his warning, he simply leaves on his own terms. By doing that, he forces the people of Berk to leave their homes. Throughout the movie, he constantly proves why he's Hiccup's greatest intellectual rival. Rather than earning the loyalty of dragons, Grimmel controls his death grippers with their own venom, making them completely obedient and even immune to an alpha's command. Time and time again, he predicts Hiccup's moves, sees through his traps, and turns the hero's own plans against them. It feels like he's always one step ahead. But his greatest display of aura comes when he finally captures Toothless. Anyone would have needed a massive army or an alpha dragon to accomplish something like that. Grimmel doesn't. Through careful planning, psychological manipulation, incredible patience, and using the Light Fury as a hostage, he manages to capture the alpha of all dragons and force him to obey. It's the ultimate victory of strategy over raw power, and that's what gives Grimmel such incredible aura. DreamWorks never tried to make him the strongest villain in the franchise. They made him the one villain who could outthink its hero. On the other hand, Captain Dubois from Madagascar was made to hunt them down.
You should never have left the forest. Now you deal with me.
The second she appears, the movie stops feeling like a comedy and starts feeling like a survival movie. One minute you're watching a goofy comedy, and the next, it feels like a T-1000 is chasing Alex and the gang. Her first appearance is all you need to understand what kind of villain she is. She rides her motorcycle straight through the smoke, and it forms devil horns over her head, like she literally comes from hell to take Alex. She's aura farming from the very first scene. Then she gets off the bike, drops onto all fours, and starts tracking the animals by their scent. Right away, the movie makes one thing crystal clear. This isn't an ordinary animal control officer. This is someone who treats every hunt like an obsession. From that point on, Dubois becomes an unstoppable force of nature. During the chase, she crashes through brick walls, scales buildings like they're nothing, sprints across rooftops, and keeps chasing the gang without ever looking tired, all while completely ignoring the laws of physics. Somehow, through all of it, her expression barely changes. Honestly, after a while, you start wondering if she's even human. Like when her entire elite animal control team ends up hospitalized after a massive crash. Dubois walks into the hospital, starts singing to rally her officers, and her sheer presence feels like it's enough to bring them back to life. Their casts shatter, their broken bones heal, and they rise from their beds like a resurrected zombie army, purely motivated by her singing. If this doesn't scream aura, I don't know what does. Throughout the movie, one thing becomes crystal clear. Dubois cannot be reasoned with. She can't be bribed. Nothing can pull her away from her mission. Her entire life has been narrowed down to one completely obsessive goal: mounting Alex's head on her wall. That obsession reaches its peak near the end of the movie. After unknowingly bringing Alex and the others back to New York, she's publicly celebrated as a hero and handed a massive reward check in front of the crowd. Dubois doesn't even hesitate. She rips the check to pieces right there in front of everyone. In that moment, you realize it was never about the reward or recognition. It was always about the hunt. And honestly, that's what gives Captain Dubois such incredible aura. Every impossible stunt, every insane chase, and every injury she walks away from makes her feel less like a normal person and more like an unstoppable force that simply refuses to quit. Speaking of unstoppable forces, how can we not talk about death from Puss in Boots?
I just love the smell of fear.
Who is literally the purest example of aura. Seriously, everything about him just screams aura, from his design to his voice and of course, the whistle. Every detail is built to make him unforgettable, but what truly gives him aura isn't just how he looks, it's how he carries himself. Death doesn't just feel dangerous, he feels inevitable. From the very first moment we see him, there's something different about him. His presence alone completely changes the atmosphere. When Puss, blinded by his own legend, makes the mistake of assuming this is just another bounty hunter, he learns pretty quickly this is no ordinary enemy. For the first time, Puss isn't the one controlling the battle. Every attack from Death feels effortless, while Puss is having a hard time even holding on to his sword. It's almost as if Death already knows exactly how the duel is going to end, and that's what makes the fight so terrifying. Death isn't trying to prove he's better than Puss, he's simply reminding him that no matter how skilled he is, nobody outruns Death forever. The moment Puss sees his own blood for the first time, everything changes. The fearless outlaw who laughs in the face of danger suddenly loses all his confidence, and instead of fighting, he runs. Honestly, that's Death's greatest display of aura. He doesn't just defeat the hero physically, he destroys the identity Puss has built around himself. For the first time in his life, the legendary outlaw is genuinely afraid to die. That fear follows Puss everywhere. No matter where he hides, Death always finds him. Every time that haunting whistle echoes through the air, the movie starts feeling like a horror film. And when Death delivers one of the coldest lines in DreamWorks history,
I'm Death, straight up.
Both Puss and us realize this was never a bounty hunter chasing a famous outlaw. It was Death itself, hunting someone who had spent 8 lives treating mortality like a joke. But what makes Death such a brilliant villain is what happens during the final battle. At the Wishing Star, Puss stands his ground for the first time, finally understanding the value of the one life he has left. The moment Death realizes Puss has truly changed, he chooses to end the fight himself. He knows Puss finally respects the life he once took for granted, so there's no reason to keep hunting him. Like a force of nature, he arrives exactly when he's needed, and leaves the moment his purpose has been fulfilled. Honestly, that's what gives Death such aura. He never cared about power or revenge. He was driven by one purpose: to confront someone who believed they were untouchable and force him to respect the one thing no legend can ever escape: death itself.